Jeff, who is going to rotate with the A's?
How will the A's rotate?
Yeah.
Abby will have an A permanently, Larkin will have an A permanently, and Nielsen and Glennie will rotate depending home and away games.
What went into that decision, John? Or what were you guys thinking about?
Into the decision for what?
The 4 A's rather than the 1C.
Rather than the C. Well, you know, Steve and I talked through the course of the summer. One, you know, I felt like I wanted to add Glennie as part of that captain group. I don't want to say leadership group because there's other leaders on the team, but he's somebody who I already have leaned on a bit. He's somebody that leads by example unbelievably. I think he's got a bigger voice, and I think this will help his voice come out. You know, obviously losing Croner, that opened up a potential spot there. Didn't have to do it, but I felt like we wanted Glennie to be part of it. You know, I also think through the conversations that Steve and I had through the summer, you know, Steve's getting to know these guys, and I don't want to speak for him. He spoke, I know already, but you know, I think he wanted to make sure he was super comfortable with it. Well, it's hard to be super comfortable when you're just getting to know people. So this gives us time for him to get to know people, and I think we got a real good group. At the end of the day, whether it's a letter or not a letter, whether it's a C or an A or a guy doesn't wear a letter, really none of that totally matters. I mean, I get it, it's on the jersey and all that, but there's lots of different ways to lead. We got guys on our team, you know, Mike Green's a hell of a leader. Trevor Daly's a hell of a leader. So there's other guys on our team that are real good leaders that aren't wearing letters, and then the guys that are wearing letters, we expect them to take on a bigger role at times.
You've seen quite a bit of some of the top forward prospects. Svechnikov over the time, Sedina. How excited are you with the preseason to see, especially Seider and Kasky and some of the defense prospects?
Well, I think it's huge. I think you know what I've noticed over the last 3 years is we've drafted a lot of D, and it's felt to me when I've gone to development camps like we've had a real big pool of defensemen that have a chance to be NHL players. The question that you have is how good they're going to be and how quick. You know, I hope they're great, and it's tomorrow. And so I hope they come out and it only was added to obviously with the selection of Seider. So I hope you know, as we get through get into training camp here and get into the exhibition season, it'd be great to see those guys. You know, Kasky's somebody who I watched on tape before. Yuri Fisher had me watch him on tape ultimately before we got him, and he's got some real weapons, and then I got to see him play at the World Championships at all, and he can really shoot it. He's got a real good offensive mind. The question when a guy comes over from Europe is how do they defend on the smaller sheet, and we'll find out. And the same thing with Sides. You know, I've got to see him in kind of totally different settings. At the Men's Worlds, he was super safe. At the Prospects Tournament, he was super aggressive offensively. I think it's a real positive that he's got that offensive touch, but let's get him into games. I think he's going to end up playing the game 2 against Chicago, and that should be a test to Taves and Kane and those guys.
Give me a sense of what you think the competition level is on this team with so many young guys kind of pushing the younger veterans.
Yeah, well, I hope it's great, you know, and for that, I mean, I hope the young guys play great. That's an awesome thing for everybody involved. But I also tell you, I think there's veterans on this team that aren't giving up their jobs easily, and they're pushing hard. You know, I talked to a number of them, and they think they had great summers. They got better at things. They didn't just train and get ready. They got better at stuff. And so I think competition means that you have depth. So I hope we have great competition. You know, I think the young players, like, you know, we said it, when you look at the two teams, when I put two teams together, now that's two, not one, all of a sudden you run out of spots. And, you know, guys are maybe on the fourth line and they think, you know, they want to be top 2 line guys. It just shows you how hard it is. Like, you have to take people's jobs, and they're not giving them up easy. I hope we have a strong push. I hope all our young players play great, and if they take jobs, awesome. And if the older guys demand that they keep their jobs, awesome too. But the worst part would be if the older guys didn't play good and the young guys didn't play good. You know, so.
Because of the competition, was there a different message that you had for the team coming into camp?
I don't. You know, I think every year is its own kind of animal, and I think every year you have an opportunity to focus on certain things, both from a team aspect and how we're going to play. For sure, we're going to have to defend great. We're going to have to make sure we're elite in that area, and we haven't been good enough in that area. And why? Well, part of it is the maturation process of young players. I think when you're a young forward, especially, or even a young D, you want to push it, and you end up beating yourselves all the time. Most teams beat themselves more than the other team wins. And so we got to make sure we do a good job not beating ourselves. That's one area we got to make sure we're real good in that in the defensive area. The other message, just I think guys know it. I mean, it's open. There's competition for jobs.
Valeno looks like a player that really exudes confidence, and he seems to step up at big moments during the prospects tournament. As far as Zadina goes, where do you think his confidence level is at after last season, and what does he need to do to take the next step?
Well, he's got the tricky thing of he's got to do two things. Like one, he's got like any player coming in the league, you have no chance of playing if you're not a 200-foot all-around player. It's almost impossible. There's almost no players in the league that play and are effective if they're not good on both sides of the puck. So he's got to be a responsible player. But two, he's got to be dangerous, and that's a hard balance sometimes. It's easy to just be a defender. When you're expected to be solid on the defensive side of the puck, but also be dangerous offensively, it's a hard thing. Sometimes it takes a little time. I thought Z had tons of shots in the prospects tournament. I thought sometimes in a short tournament, production doesn't always equal reality. I thought he was dangerous enough times, and he's just got to carry that forward. He can't get frustrated when he doesn't score. He's just got to keep playing. I thought he made tons of plays in the first period. I thought he was the best player on the ice in the first period of the final game, and good for him. So I think part of this process of becoming an NHL player and getting to the top of the pyramid is mental toughness, and you have to find a way to keep your own confidence, maybe even when things aren't going great.
Hey Jeff, what do you need to see from Justin Abdelkader here in the next few weeks and going forward? I mean, you kind of admitted he had a disappointing season last year. How does he rebound from that?
Well, one thing he did really well last year, I thought he killed penalties well, and that doesn't show up in tons of stats, that's a really hard thing for, especially because our kill wasn't great. But if you look at it, he didn't get scored on very much, That's not a sexy stat or something that as a group of people that you look at a ton. But I thought he did a good job on that. I think he's been in different roles during his career here, and certainly a role when you're playing with the Paverzy like he did at one point was to go to the net, give them the puck, kind of go to the net. Depending on the line he is, it's a different role, and therefore should be different expectations. If he plays on a line that plays lots of minutes, then there's going to be a bigger expectation of production. If he plays on a line that doesn't play lots of minutes, how can you expect somebody to produce a ton? I just think he's got to focus on making sure that he hounds the puck hard. He can do a real good job of that, making sure he gets the net hard. He can do a real good job of that. So he can help feed our identity by hounding it and being suffocating in that O-zone, getting to the net, being hard around the net, and then being all around solid 200-foot player. And I think then he can help our identity.
When you look at how the Larkin and the Bertuzzi line finished last year, now coming back, what does it do for you as a coach and for the rest of the whole team to kind of have an established top line there to set the bar, I guess?
Yeah, no, it's good. I mean, I think both as a coach. I mean, I think the one thing as guys are coming up, you're trying to find the right fit, and when you can find a line that has chemistry, that's a huge thing, and it's a really good line in terms of how they complement each other. Lark's motor always goes. I think Bert provides that. He's got a pretty unique ability or skill package in that he's super hard. But very, very smart, and that's a real hard thing. He's got skill. He can play with great players, goes to the net, can score tips, can do that type of stuff. Real good defensively and well. And then Mo, obviously, when Mo's moving his feet, man, he's one of the best players in the league, really. Like, he's a big monster. So, it's been a good chemistry line. And it's good. I think we feel good about it starting the year. And then we just got to find the other lines.
Svechnikov, how much you got to look at today, but obviously he missed a lot of time.
Yeah, I mean, it's a lot to ask of Evgeny. Like, he missed, I mean, that's a huge, huge year where you're not even on the ice. You're not. So, it's going to be a process with Svech, and he knows that. I think the one thing about Svech is he's a great kid. He wants to be a great player. Sometimes he's trying so hard that he hurts himself. He's just got to calm himself down. Let's look at it as a marathon, not a sprint. I think that's the biggest thing he's got to understand.
First day of camp, there were a couple of instances of doing some lateral laps, but mostly it seemed like the pace was very good. What were your impressions thereof?
Lateral laps, like where they go back and forth in the boards?
Yes, sir.
Oh, yeah. You know what? I thought our guys came to work. I mean, they came to work. I didn't think we were executing great on those couple instances. So my job is to make sure that they know that and they need to correct it. And I thought they did a good job of correcting it. But I'd tell you, I thought they came to work. It was super hard. Nobody, you don't hear any mumbling or complaining or anything like that. Our guys want to work. They want to be a way better hockey team than we've been. We've got a long ways to go to prove that. But certainly just from day one, it was a hard working day, and they answered the bell.